Okay, what's up, everybody? So I'm here with Roger Comstock, who is the founder of Tuple, which is a customer experience and marketing platform. I'm going to let him explain a little bit more, but here he is. How's it going, Roger?
Doing well, Corey. Thanks for having me on your show. I really love what you're doing. It looks like you've been able to really kind of dive into. Oh, Cody! I said Corey.
You're good.
I meant Cody. I think I called you that before too. I didn't mean that. I know your brothers, and for some reason I was thinking it was Corey. Forgive me.
No, you're good.
But yeah, so Tuple is a customer experience and marketing platform. It's been a total blast to build the company. I'm excited to kind of go over. A lot of times everybody talks about the really positive aspects of business. And I think it's most important for people to understand kind of the authentic, genuine, real life experience that an entrepreneur goes through in developing his or her kind of brainchild, and the bumps along the way, the hard times, the really, really good times, the roller coaster of emotions, the tears you cry, the laughs, the smiles. I mean, I think it's important. And so I think it'll be fun to kind of talk to you about that today. But as far as what Tuple is right now, we sell software to small to medium-sized businesses across the country, focus a lot on industries that are more brick and mortar, where they can use our platform. We give our clients an iPad that basically measures customer experience data, provides feedback for the owner, and then basically if the feedback was good, pushes the individual who left the feedback to leave a review on Google, Yelp, Facebook, TripAdvisor, any of those platforms and a couple others. And then if the feedback was negative, then the entrepreneur or the owner of the business utilizing the platform has the ability to embed a coupon in a text and say, hey, so sorry you had this experience. Here's 10% off. Come back in.
Okay.
So kind of fun.
Nice. Yeah, so like you were saying, I want to hear it all. And Tuple sounds like a great thing, but I want to go back to the beginning. So take me back to what you were doing in life, or when you had the first idea of like, I'm going to start a software company, focus on this.
Sure, you bet. I feel like it's super important for me to never take credit for anything. I think other people have played the role in my life in any success that I've had or will have in the future. I think there's great entrepreneurs that have been wildly successful who I kind of model my life after. But what I had been doing, I'd actually gone up to Sydney, Montana to help in large asset real estate investment. They wanted me to help kind of run this hotel up there during this period of time that was a little bit rough. Oil prices had increased, so fracking had stopped in this area in the Bakken in Sydney, Montana, which means the economy was going down. And so the guy that had hired me to go help with this property.
When was this?
This would have been end of 2016.
Okay.
You bet. And then at that point, the owner, he was a great guy, but just wasn't able to kind of pull out of the tailspin that he was in. And so he wasn't able to pay me for that work up there. And so I drove down and was hired at Vivint Solar as somebody that was a business intelligence analyst. So a lot of nerdy stuff, which I enjoy. I think that stuff's great. But I realized while I was there that I wasn't going to make any big splash, being a small fish in a big pond. I really wanted to dent the world with something positive. I wanted to make an impact for people in their lives. My why really is other people. I think as an entrepreneur, if the why really is founded in money, it usually is a telltale sign that something's going to go wrong if that's what's happening, because money isn't motivating enough to get knocked down and get back up for again and again.
Right.
I think people are, and so
For sure.
You have a tough time and you realize why you're doing something is because you want to be able to give back. You want to be able to help. It makes getting back up a lot easier when it gets hard.
For sure. I've mentioned this a couple times on the podcast where, when you're trying to make money and that's like your goal, it doesn't really come.
Yeah.
But when you find your why or your passion in life and that's what you choose to go after, the money follows.
It does, man.
It's just finding that why or that reason, what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then the things will follow, which is awesome.
It is. It truly is. I agree.
So you're working at Vivint as a business intelligence analyst, and you're just like, I'm gonna start a tech company.
Yeah, it was super scary, and that's what I actually want to talk about. I don't want to sugarcoat anything because I actually got my MBA, and I regret getting the. If people ask me if they should get their MBA, I'll tell them no all day long. And the reason for that is because I don't think business is portrayed accurately in the world of academia. It's more hypothetical and theoretical, and here's what we think could happen in comparison to real life application that we learn from entrepreneurs that have been there and done that. So right. What was nice is getting this feeling of, I think I want to go start my own thing, feeling scared to death. My eyes would open in the morning. I can still remember renting this room from my friend and opening my eyes, feeling like I was just going to throw up. I wanted to cry. It was a terrible feeling, but you do it anyway, and I jumped, I exercised faith, hoping things would work out. And I remember, at Vivint Solar, it was like this air-conditioned room, laughing with friends, joking around, free lunch.
Right.
Sometimes it was super busy, sometimes it wasn't, but no matter what, the paycheck came in. When I quit Vivint Solar, I was hired to help as a sales manager for like 2 months. And then after that, it was me on my own running this new company, Tuple, that I'd started. I was a sales manager for another friend's company, just kind of in the interim between Vivint and this thing kind of taking off and starting. But when I had started, I had no clue what I was doing. And I think that's important to understand too. Phil Knight shares the same experience in Shoe Dog. If you've read that book with Nike, he had no idea what he was doing as a business owner. He just knew he wanted to sell shoes.
So when you quit, did you already come up with the idea of Tuple? Or did you just quit thinking I'm going to start something?
I had no clue how it was going to work. I remember one day on LinkedIn, I posted, I was like, hey, if anybody needs an app developed or a website, let me know. I had no employees. I had no developers or anything. I was like, if somebody says yes, I'm just going to find a way to make this work. And so I had a couple people reach out, and I was just quoting based off of, frankly, it was foolish. I had no idea what I was doing. And so it was like, we could probably build that for, 10 or 15 grand, and not understanding what was going on. And then as time went on, I started to realize it requires a lot of experience in understanding exactly how to price, where to price, who to look for as far as ideal clients, how to find them. And most of the time you're going to find people just by grinding and working your tush off, And so I was out on Center Street in Orem, Utah, knocking on doors for hours and hours, and it was the middle of July, and I remember thinking, I remember moving from Vivint Solar and knocking on this busy street and thinking, what the heck am I doing? And I sit down thinking, this is just a disaster. I had super good pay at Vivint Solar. Now I had no pay. It was scary, but I feel like when people kind of put themselves out there to do something difficult, somehow, I don't know why it's the case, I believe in God, and people can believe whatever they want, whether they believe it's God or the universe. But I believe when we work hard towards something, there's usually some reciprocation back, and I believe it's the hand of providence. But I had knocked that day, actually. I was just thinking, honestly, I was just like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. It's just this crazy feeling. So I knocked on a door, just kind of nestled back up in these trees off Center Street. And it ended up being somebody that had worked at BYU. And they had just been given like a $1.8 million grant, and they needed a big website built. So that brought in a good chunk of money right in the beginning. And Tuple didn't start as a software company. It was a web and app development company. Okay. And so we built mobile apps for Android, iOS, and then we built websites. And what I found is that business model really lacks continuity, the ability to be able to continuously produce revenue on an ongoing basis, without the residual, and that's hard, right? So you get lump sums of cash, you build a big website. Some sites are 3,500, some sites are 23 grand. An app maybe 68 grand. But when that money comes in, you're kind of managing the devs, you're managing the client, you're trying to make sure all the money's the right place, you're selling, right? At least bootstrapping.
So when you got these people, were you just finding like dev people that you knew, or like just contractors? Like, how are you finding these people?
Dude, that's such a good question. It was truly a bit of a miracle. I would just believe that I'd be able to find somebody. So I'd get a job and I'd be like, okay, I need to find a really good front-end iOS programmer, or somebody that can write in React Native, which is a cross-platform development language, so it works on Android or iOS. Ended up finding a really good developer at Divi that was moonlighting for me, which was super nice of him. Did an exceptional job, and then found this really smart brainiac for back-end development, and it was just a lucky thing.
So, I love it though. That's awesome that you went out and just sold something, and they're like, I'll figure it out after.
I had to, yeah. There's really no choice. That's kind of the cool thing, I think. And what I've learned is that it's always that way. There's a lot of uncertainty, and if you just kind of step forward into the dark, somehow things work out. Yeah. And so it's been super fun to live that. It's awesome.
So you were knocking doors, selling just, web development or app development. Then when did you decide, okay, like you're going to take it more into Tuple, into the, the customer experience and switch it over to that?
So to be honest, I ended up, I'll just dive right into the actual Tuple business model. I won't try to hide anything. I think a lot of times, a lot of internal barriers to entry are automatically created just because business is hard. And so I don't mind. I'm not going to have anybody sign an NDA or anything, just because I'm happy with everybody knowing exactly what Tuple is doing and how we do it. And so what had happened is in web and app development, it actually got super hard, and I was getting worn out because bootstrapping without any venture capital backing a business can be really challenging in trying to grow revenue while managing clients and also selling. And it's tough. And I wanted that continuity to be able to grow a team or to be able to kind of just grow the company outward. So I had actually gone to a meeting up in Silicon Slopes and had met with this company. And I had this idea while I was with them. They were still fairly new. And so I wanted to be able to kind of structure some partnership agreement that created a symbiotic relationship between the development that they had done and a sales team that could sell the product while they were still at an early enough stage that we could get really, really good pricing on licensing the product.
Okay.
So a good example of a company that has done something similar to this would be like Vivint Smart Home. In the beginning, and Todd, the owner, is one of my heroes and one of my own mentors that I really, really love and look up to because of what he's done. He did it the hard way. I think strategically, a lot of entrepreneurs have differing ideas when it comes to whether or not to raise venture capital or whether or not to bootstrap. And to me, I think it depends on the model. But what's interesting to me are those people that choose to kind of hold off and wait are generally better off for it, because the teeter-totter of equity kind of tips the opposite way once there's been value created internally inside of a business. And that requires a price to pay, And so Ryan Smith, Jared Smith, they did that. They paid the price. They worked hard. Qualtrics is now almost a 20-year-old company. They're in their 18th year. But they sold to SAP for $8 billion, but they bootstrapped in the beginning.
Right.
Todd Peterson did the same thing, sold to Blackstone for $4.2 billion. And those were two of Utah's largest tech exits. And it's telling that both of them were bootstrapped businesses, And so going back to Todd's kind of business model, to be honest, we did a little bit of copycatting on the software side. We found that in the beginning, I think Vivint has probably brought everything in-house now. But in the beginning, they kind of partnered with other companies, I think like Monotronics. If I understand correctly, what they had done is like Monotronics and Honeywell providing the hardware and R&D, Monotronics providing the monitoring. And they created this symbiotic relationship between the three entities where Vivint could basically white label the Honeywell products, Monotronic could provide the monitoring, and then Vivint would sell it. So they created this big sales team, and they could push this great product across the country. And what I realized is that wasn't being done in software. There were things like partnership programs or referral programs, but there wasn't a company that was more strategically kind of focused on helping the company develop with an outside sales team that didn't need to be paid for by the tech company we partnered with, if that makes sense. So basically what we did is I found this company up in Silicon Slopes. They were new, and I said, I'll tell you what, if you sell us licenses at a highly discounted rate, then we'll go sell them. And they didn't have to do anything. We'd fulfill customer success. We would have our own agreements and contracts and salespeople. So it would run exactly like our own autonomous sales organization and tech company, but selling somebody else's product. And
Okay.
What that did is this is a long way to kind of explain, but hopefully it's helpful for people listening, because it shows kind of the process in someone's mind going from literally nothing, this working at Vivint Solar as an analytics person, to kind of letting this brainchild develop into something that's become really, really a beautiful thing and works extra well. And so what we did is we basically said, hey, look, you guys provide the R&D just like Vivint might have done with Honeywell in the beginning, so they didn't have to pay all that money in building the hardware. So let this company build the tech. We'll sell it. They can make money every month by us selling it, and we don't have to worry about the high costs of R&D.
Right.
And that's how Tuple got started.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So Tuple, you didn't create your own product. It's turned into like where it's not you're selling your own product, you're kind of the middleman.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the products that we sell are white labeled, but it's also very different. And this is something that's important to understand. It's much different than the normal partnership program. A good example for this would be, I actually called, people listening will probably know Podium.
Right.
Podium is a great company.
When you first mentioned what Tuple was, I thought of Podium.
Yeah.
Because we use Podium at our store.
Cool.
And so I was like, oh,
Yeah.
sounds familiar.
Very, very similar product. A couple different features, but what's awesome about Podium and what they've done, they've built a phenomenal brand and an exceptional company with hyper growth. I mean, I think it's awesome. There's plenty of room for everybody. There's 27.2 million SMB companies entering the economy every year. So when people are like, I don't know if I should hop into that market, I'm thinking, there is room for everyone. There's plenty of businesses that need help, and there's room for anybody that wants to come in and join. But what's interesting is, like, if somebody were to go to Podium and try to kind of replicate Tuple's model, this is just kind of taking the curtain back on everything so they can see. We actually called Podium in the beginning, and they're so far along already. They've got a really good thing going that the leverage had kind of tipped in their favor, which meant that we weren't going to structure a very favorable partnership deal when it came to us acting autonomously as a tech company with their product. And so, they may give, if they're charging $399 a month, and so they put them in a year agreement, that's basically $4,800 for the year. Podium may give us 10% total of a one-time kind of kickback. So $480 goes to Tuple. Where we weren't looking for that. We were looking to be able to grow with a company that was more early stage. And that's kind of our sweet spot.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
If you go too late, if you structure a partnership agreement with a company too late, you've kind of missed out. But if you can find a company that's really got some wheels on it, that's a rocket ship, and that is generally pre-funding, then you can kind of help them out in getting some extra MRR at discounted licensing agreements.
Right. I mean, this is smart because, a lot of people are like, I want to start a business, I want to start a tech business. They try to come up with the next idea. And then when they come up with the idea, they got to develop it, they got to test it. But I like, you're just like, what? I'm not going to create that idea. What I'm going to do is take someone's idea and create the sales teams for it and create the residual and go out there and market it and sell it. Right.
That's exactly right.
And so you don't have to take the 2 to 4 years of building your own product and hoping to bootstrap it and there's all this money. You're just like, I'm going to take something that already exists and I'm going to sell it and make money.
That's right.
And created a software or created your company that does that. And now Tuple, you guys sell and you do well, but you didn't have to go through the hard, you didn't have to create the actual product. And that's a genius, I think.
Oh, you're very kind. That's super nice of you. We have a great partnership. I won't disclose who the company is that we work with right now, just for their sakes, but we have got a phenomenal partnership with them. The owner's one of my great friends. We have a great working relationship, and we see a long future together. We hope to be working together for at least the next 10 years, which is awesome. And it's kind of it's an exclusive partnership agreement. So there's no one else has the same. That's the way it was structured. It's the only way it works, really. So we've got pricing that is not going to be given to any other business trying to do the same thing, and they're really only working with us with where it's at. So it's kind of nice.
Do you think the model that you've created with Tuple, could you take Tuple and do other things with it, or would you have to create another business? Do you want to expand and go to another startup company and do the same thing, same structure? Yeah,
good question, man. This is a really interesting idea. We actually have about 5 partners across the country that we're working with. This software partner is our main kind of hub, and who are mainly focused on selling and growing. But we also have a partner out of Missouri that helps with when we've got companies that we work with that are not part of the ICP for the software. And ICP just means ideal client profile, right? So you really got to find people that work well with the product that can find value in it, or its churn rate will go up. And so if somebody's not a good fit for the software, we actually have another company that we work with that gives us very, very good pricing on search engine optimization or PPC or Google ads. And they actually have people out of India, but with an American contact, and they do a phenomenal job. It's all white labeled. So it's Tuple's brand on it. Then we've got another company we're partnered with out of Washington that fulfills with some other help with small to medium-sized businesses as far as getting them recognized. And so Tuple, the word is actually, it's a mathematical term and a programming term, and it's basically an unalterable array of objects in programming, meaning that it's a lot of things kind of pushed into one array, and that's what we've done with different businesses. We kind of have different businesses pushed into this one kind of hub, and we act as a sales center, and it's a blast, man. It's an absolute blast. It's been really hard to build, and we can talk about that too, but it's been a lot of fun.
Well, I bet, because if I started a company, thinking myself of like going, okay, like managing a sales team, building the sales team, putting forth the money to have the sales team, it'd be stressful. But to have someone like you come and be like, hey, we'll do that for you if you just give us a percentage or make out a good deal. I'd be like, go ahead. I can create the product because I trust it and I know it. And then you guys can come in and sell it.
That's exactly right.
And
It's a very, very, man, I love it so much because I believe business, the only time you ever want to ruin somebody in business is in monopoly. Honestly, like you never ever want to hurt somebody else in doing business. I always want to make sure it's a win-win for whoever it is that I'm working with, because then it's enjoyable. You have a blast together. It's a lot of fun. And so, yeah, the company we're working with, you're right in saying we sell it. We do the customer success side, which is much different than customer support. But the customer success and making sure they're proactive in using the software and they're happy with it, and all of our own agreements and getting them signed up, and we have our own portal that they can log in with, and it's white labeled as a subdomain. So it's very much so it's the Tuple company, but with somebody else's product,
right.
And they don't have to do anything. But every month they're going to make money off of sales that we create, and so it's super nice for them. They can literally sit back and we're going to generate some MRR for them, but we're also going to, it's a win-win. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So tell me, so you came up with this idea, you started, you met with the company Silicon Slopes. How was it like implementing it? Like now, like getting it all together, getting your team together. How was that part?
Oh, I went through hell. I mean, the seventh circle of the abysmal pit of hell. And I'll tell you why. I didn't know anything, and I'm so grateful to admit that. I would tell anybody, I still don't know anything. You learn as you go, and what you realize is a lot of these companies that you feel like have it all together. I could tell a bunch of stories about companies up in the slopes that people look at and they're like, wow, this is, I mean, I think they've nailed it. That they all have their own struggles, and they're dealing with growing pains and things that they've never experienced that they have to figure out. So what I had thought originally is, I'm going to hire a bunch of 1099 contracted employees to be able to sell the software. It mitigates risk. It makes it positive for them. I'll give them a chunk of the residual whenever they sell it. And what I realized is that that's not a very viable solution, and it doesn't work very well strategically because the sales cycle is much more elongated than it is for like a summer sales position. Right? In the B2C marketplace, it's generally a sales cycle of a day to 2 days, knock on the door, get in there. It's high pressure sell, get the contract, signed, and then the installer or the sprayer, out at the location. Whereas software is a much more consultative sell in B2B. And so you're nurturing them, you're setting up sequences, you're touching them, through a cold call, and then setting up something to kind of warm them up, calling them again. And so the sales cycle ends up being, anywhere from, on average, probably 4 to 6 weeks, some longer, some less. But that means that because of that time being stretched out, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for somebody not making a base to be successful, So I realized that wasn't working for the 1099 guys. And then I brought people in W-2, which makes a lot more sense that way. That was a super hard thing to figure out. We also had a partner that we had originally gone with that wasn't where we thought they were. And they're a great company, good people. I loved the founders, great guys, but it just didn't end up working out. And so that was really tricky because we'd sold this product that we thought was going to be awesome, that it was us who had made some serious mistakes. And I'm really grateful. I'd love to be super vulnerable and tell you all the mistakes. So any questions you have, I do not want to have any sort of, I want to drop any sort of ego that anybody would hope would be gone in, so that people can get the real meal deal of how business is. Right. And I don't want to make things sound like, oh yeah, they're super great all the time. What you find is that you learn along the way that there's some really, really challenging things. In tech, I never realized how important churn was. What I had originally thought in going into selling a software product was somebody's going to buy it, they're going to keep it forever. Right. I just thought, these businesses are growing and killing it. And so if they buy this product, they're going to do well, they're never going to churn out of it. And that's just not the case. In the SMB business kind of marketplace, it's churn rates average at about 3 to 5% per month, so 36% to 60% per year. And that's tricky because what that means is that you've got to have a really good customer. And this is where customer success, and something that we learned along the way, was a tough lesson, but man, it was important. When somebody comes in and starts using the product, you've got to proactively be reaching out to them, making sure that they're successful. It can't be like, hey, congrats, happy you're using it and good luck, or else they'll churn quick, And so you can increase the LTV of a client by taking care of them and making sure they're getting real value out of the system and their relationship with the company individually. And so that was awesome. And understanding that, we also painfully understood the brutal reality of customer acquisition cost. You know, the CAC in if you look at a lot of these companies are trying to figure out who their ideal client is, and it's really a race against time for any of these startups, these tech companies. They're trying to figure out, man, how do I get this product into the market as quick as I can by finding somebody that's an ideal client, and where do I price it? And do I use agreements? Do I not use agreements? Whatever it is they're trying to figure out. But what happens is if they're not fast enough in figuring out who their ideal client profile is, then people will churn out and they get cooked in the squat. And so that's something that we had really had to kind of hone in on, because it doesn't work to sell products to anybody and everybody. You really got to kind of niche down, and there's plenty of books on that, but figure out who's going to be most successful and learn all about their industry and sell it right to them.
Right. Wow. I mean, there's so much that I imagine you've learned, because this has been 3 or 4 year process, right? It's been we started January 2017, and then in the middle of 2018, middle of 2018 we started selling software. So we've been selling software for like a year and a half to 2 years. Okay. So tell me, you've learned a lot. There's been ups and downs, and what's something that right now in this moment you should have known in the beginning?
I wish everybody would know that it's okay that it's hard. And I think it should be hard.
Right.
I don't think that things that are worth having in life should be given for free, because then they don't mean as much. Right. I think in our lives, we work on relationships and they're hard, but we grow to love people because they're hard. And if anybody listening to this hasn't listened to or read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, that should be their next thing on their to-do list, because it changes. I think everybody sees life through different paradigms or different glasses, and that changed my paradigm completely.
Right.
Because what I realized is Phil Knight just loved building something. And for most successful entrepreneurs, that's the case, whether it's Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. They just love the process of building. And what happens at the first of the book, Phil Knight sells his vehicle for $1,400 and borrows $50 from his dad to buy some shoes in Japan and ship them to his parents' house, and he sells them out of his parents' basement at track meets, him and his buddy Johnson. And by the end of the book, maybe cut right to the middle for a second, Nike has been wondering for a long time whether or not to go public, and they finally decided to go public. And overnight, Phil Knight is worth $168 million.
Right. I love, because every month leading up to that moment, they're like, are we going to make it? Yeah. Are we going to make payroll? Are we going to cover our costs? Absolutely. And then they went public, and he was worth $168 million. But it's literally 1 month, he's like, are we going to make payroll? Next month, worth $168 million.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
crazy.
It is crazy. And what I love so much, honestly, it's kind of a little nugget that people may not, maybe they catch it and maybe they don't, but there's a sentence in the book that changed my life. He's like, I didn't feel any different, and so it wasn't the fact that he's now worth $168 million that changed his life. It was the process that he really, really loved and enjoyed. He'd come home at night and sit in this very special chair and call his dad and get counsel from his dad and consult with his wife. And there's tricky things in trying to find money. And like you said, payroll problems. And those are all very real things.
Right.
People try to hide it and be like, oh no, business is great. And a lot of times business is, but a lot of times business isn't great.
Right.
A lot of times it's super hard and you're scared to death. And
this is really hard.
It's really hard. Yeah. It is really hard. So by the end of the book, Phil Knight's worth $10 billion. He's hanging out with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. He sees him at a movie theater, and he's worth $10 billion as an individual, which is awesome. But what I think's interesting in this case is he looks back on his experience with Nike after years and years. And again, years and years is a very key kind of focal point to anybody that's wanting to get into business. That it takes time, but he says, the only thing I regret, this is Phil Knight, he says, the only thing that I regret is that I just wish I could go back and do it all over again.
Right.
And most people are like, man, if I had $10 billion, I'd just not want to do anything.
Right.
But there's something special about building something. And so it frankly pisses me off when I see things on like Instagram or Facebook of these ads running. It's like, hey, become a millionaire overnight with this new e-commerce strategy.
Right.
With these kids sitting next to
Lamborghinis.
Platform. Yeah. I think people can, but it's not going to be overnight. That's for sure. It's going it's going to take them some time, and it should take some time.
Right. Sure. That is true. So, okay. So, you started it, you got to where it is. So explain to me where you're at right now, kind of like your day to day, like what you're working on.
Yeah, you bet. So right now, day to day it's consistently different every single day, and that's what makes it so fun. My brother is kind of a key, Cody Lauder is kind of a key player in the company, and he's super smart. Again, I'll never take credit for, I hope no one gives me credit for anything. As the company grows, I don't want a lick of it because I owe it to other people. I think God for sure, and then the people that I work with are awesome. Cody's smart, and so the process today is we'll find things that just don't work very well. We'll have an email sequence that's just not converting. People aren't opening it. They're not replying. They're not clicking on links. And so it's, well, what do we need to do to kind of re-engineer this? What does the process need to look like for expanding a sales team, bringing people in? Where do we want our cushion to be as far as operating margins go? What does the customer success journey need to look like in order to make sure that they're successful? So just a cool example, we went from really doing terrible at customer success. We were not very good at it.
Right.
We were bad at it. And now we've got to the point where we've got clients that are so happy with what's going on. We had a client make $52,000 in 12 days using the platform, and they spent just a little over $1,000 with us. So they got a return of about $520 for every dollar they spent. Wow. That's a big difference from where we were at before. And that's so fun to watch, because you watch something being created and developed and you're like, it's working, it's actually working. And it's super fun. We had this one client that was so happy. Again, very different than it was before. We had clients before that were not happy because we didn't know what we were doing. Right. But we had this client that had been using our product, a feature in our product for 20 minutes. And within 20 minutes, she had 5 new appointments. And then she was on the phone for 2 hours after that, scheduling appointments for her business. And so she actually called. She's like, hey, can we turn this thing down? She's like, this has been crazy and we're getting too many calls. And so it's been a lot of fun to kind of watch that grow. And there's going to be plenty more things to figure out as we go. A lot of more failing to do. And I love that. I think failing is a big part of the process. A lot more failing to do and a lot more successes to have and victory to be won, as time goes on, which is fun.
True. Okay. So I want to take you into kind of, you're at where you're at now. Yeah. You've got it to where it is. So where do you see yourself in 6 to 12 months from now?
Yeah, good question. I've chosen specifically for my own reasons not to pursue venture capital right now.
Okay.
So for that reason, I don't expect hyper growth anytime soon. And there's a lot of people that say that's foolish. That's the wrong decision. And there's a lot of people that would say, hey, that's a smart way to go. Personally, I feel my reasoning for that is that you can maintain a lot of autonomy, being able to decide where value is created for clients and what happens with employees when they come into the company if there's not a lot of equity dilution, and a lot of times, a lot of these startup companies choose to dilute a lot of equity, which is okay. I'm not saying that's good or bad, and I'm not saying what I'm doing is good or bad. I'm just saying this is the choice that I've taken for certain reasons.
Right.
And it's because if I can bootstrap the way that we're doing it right now long enough, there's a lot of value that's created internally. And so the teeter-totter kind of starts to tip, where in the beginning, these companies, we watch shows like Shark Tank,
right?
And these guys go into the Shark Tank and they're giving away 33% of their company for $250,000. I'm like, man, that's a huge chunk of the business for a small amount of money, relatively, right? Well, and they probably don't have a choice. They're at a growth kind of halt. They need some way to be able to market or grow the company, or they need more R&D kind of capital. And so that's a smart decision for them. But if somebody can bootstrap it, even though it's painful, you have to sacrifice, then it's the best way to go. I drive a 2006 old BMW. It's got 264,000 miles on it. I'm trying to get it to 300,000. It's paid off. I've got a truck that's paid off. And the only reason I say that is I'm not going to try to look all fancy schmancy until I'm to the point where it's real. You know what I mean? I don't like the idea of projecting something that's not true.
Right.
So my BMW cost me $4,500, and so it's kind of cool because in bootstrapping this business, there's really great ways to save money, and to grow a company organically so that eventually when there's, $400,000 coming in every single month, it's real. And then investors, the venture capitalists, that are really wanting something with those kind of returns will come in, and the equity dilution is much less, than what it would have been in the beginning if that's the route we'd chosen to go. Both routes are great. There's pros and cons to both, but that's what we've chosen to do. So in the next 6 to 12 months, I plan to just keep hiring salespeople, growing, learning.
How many people do you plan on having?
I actually would like to just have, by the end of this year, 5 well-paid W-2 sales reps, account executives, just on the floor. And then at that point, I think once we get to, 100K in MRR to where we're doing over 1 million in ARR, then I think it'd be fun to go look at some venture capitalists and see kind of what they have to say as far as what they're willing to do to work with us. We already have a company that's willing to kind of front cash at a certain level of MRR for deals that are done. And so it's fun. It's fun to figure out, and so I think if we took on a bunch of funding right now, we could hire a lot of people, but I've watched too many companies not know. I'll say this one last thing, and then any other questions you have, but one of my favorite lessons, Cody, that I've learned is I would have rather done what we did and learned what we have learned paying a price than have gotten $5 million a year and a half ago. And I mean that wholeheartedly, because if I would have gotten $5 million a year and a half ago in venture capital, I would have diluted a lot of the equity in the company, but I also would have had no clue what to do with it. No clue. I would have pumped 30 grand into ads every month and B2B Facebook ads in lead gen, being like, man, I think this is who we want to sell to. I don't even know what our ideal client profile is yet, but let's try these guys. And it doesn't work. And then the customer acquisition cost goes through the roof, and then you're upside down. And then the investors are ticked because you're not giving them returns. And then you're hiring sales guys that don't know what they're doing. And then it's a mess. And that's how companies go out of business. And you see it, you see it all the time, in the slopes and in other kind of tech hubs, especially in tech, because venture capital is kind of generally in the beginning where people go to try to make sense of these financial decisions or this journey as a company.
Sure.
But yeah, man, it's awesome to be able to just realize that slow and steady, there's a reason that we tell the story of the tortoise and the hare so frequently. There's slow and steady does win the race because you learn things that you couldn't have learned otherwise.
It's true.
So it's cool.
Everything in my life I've done slowly has turned out a lot better than things I've tried to get done fast.
Yeah.
It's true. It works.
It does.
Okay. So that's, in 6, 12 months, we're going to have a follow-up and see where you're at.
Cool.
But now tell me the vision, like this were to be what you envision it to be in 10 years or at its peak. What do you see? What do you hope for?
The nice thing is it's growing like crazy. We experienced 162% growth from 2018 to 2019, which was super awesome.
That is.
It's a lot of fun, super fun to see that happening. But so in the next 10 years, I hope to continue to see that growth and to develop it into something where I can, my whole goal, everything that I'm doing is so that I can give back. I truly, and as I don't know if that sounds cliche, but I mean it from my heart. I want to be able to do things for other people that makes their life easier. And so frankly, I don't care what happens to me now. Like if I get knocked down 1 million times, I'm going to find a way to get back up. There's nothing that can keep me down because people are my why. And so, and because I love people, dang, I'll do anything, right, to make sure that they're taken care of. My employees, I want to make sure that they're good to go. I want to make sure they're happy. If there's somebody that it has a better opportunity somewhere else. I read a book once. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was super good, but talked about I had this one guy who was actually my VP of sales for a little bit, and his dad owned a huge real estate company. Still owns it. It's like a multi-million-dollar real estate company, and his dad wanted him to come work for him. And as hard as that was for me, a heartbreaker, because he was a killer sales rep and very good leader, but his dad wanted him to come help run this company. I was just thinking, dude, you got to spread your wings. What a huge blessing, to go there. And so he did, and all those things are kind of part of the process. So the next 10 years, I plan to grow at this company we're currently working with. We've actually talked about that. I think we'll continue to grow together and learn together, and it'll be a lot of fun. Eventually, I'll probably sell Tuple, and then get into. I'd like to get into multifamily real estate investing, but that's down the road. Right now, it's just building it out.
Okay, that's exciting.
Yeah, man,
I mean,
fun.
You've got a lot to say, and you're a really interesting guy. But I can just tell you're the nicest guy. You're just someone that walks in, you ask me how I'm doing, you ask me about my life. You can just tell it replicates in what you're doing and how you're trying to help your employees. You're just a great guy.
Dude, that's really nice of you to say that, Cody. I appreciate it. And please forgive me for saying Corey in the beginning. I
You're
feel
fine.
horrible, but grateful to be here with you. Honestly, I think you're doing a really, really cool thing, getting the message of true entrepreneurship out, to what it's really like, the raw, real look at what it's like to be an entrepreneur. So this is a really cool program, man. You're killing it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And so, in 6, 12 months, or if you feel like you have a big breakthrough, I'll bring you on again to kind of see your thoughts or how it's going and kind of what you've learned in the past 6, 12 months, after listening to this. And then hopefully in your 10 years, when it gets to the point where you're at, you can look back on this and say, wow, at your 5 episodes and learn a lot and be like, I've came a long way. It's cool. It's fun for me to just it's been so interesting to get to know all these people and people like you and to be able to follow along. And I'm excited for you guys and I'm excited for you. And so I can't wait till our next meeting.
You. Thanks, man. Me too. I'll look forward to it, brother. I really will. I appreciate you so much. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks. Do you have anything, last thing you want to say?
I think that's it. I'd say if as important as this is a super controversial thing, and so I'll make it 30 seconds. I'll say as important as school is, I'd say go to school while you can, but I'd read books. I would read so many books all the time. I try to get through one book a week or one book every other week from people that have been there and done that. And that's how people find success, from learning from experts and pros. So if people are listening to this and they're not reading, they need to rethink at least that part of their strategy and learn from people that have gone through the low lows so that they can teach them how to get to the high highs. But that's what I'd end with there.
Okay. I love it. Thank you so much for your time.
You bet, man.
And I look forward to talking to you down the road.
You too.
Okay. Well, see you later, guys.